As Lauren mentioned, one of the biggest questions that students ask, and not just students, but sadly people who are not aware of the fact that Jews fought back during the Holocaust, is why didn't the Jews fight back during the Holocaust? And the reality is, of course, is that they did. And that the myth of sheep to the slaughter is just that. And the Jewish Partisan Educational Foundation exists to, in part, change the narrative of the Holocaust story, to provide an accurate picture of what really happened during the Holocaust, and the fact that Jews resisted and fought back in any way they possibly could. Elie Wiesel says that the question is not why all the Jews did not fight back, but instead, how did so many of them, tormented, beaten, starved, where did they find the strength, spiritual and physical, to resist? And I think that that's really important for us all to remember and to share that piece of history with students. What I'm going to do right now is talk a little bit about the progression of Jewish resistance during the Holocaust, and the very many ways in which Jews resisted during the Holocaust. This is a cartoon that appeared in the Voice of Youth Yiddish newspaper in the Warsaw Ghetto. This is a cartoon. The Yiddish caption reads, "Fascism must be smashed." It was, of course, illegal for any type of resistance of this type to exist, and had the publishers of this newspaper and this cartoon been discovered, then they would have been immediately punished, either sent to a death camp or perhaps shot right on the spot. Another way that Jews resisted, of course, during the Holocaust was through escape. Early on, as Jews, particularly in Germany, saw the danger that was awaiting for them as the Nuremberg laws and other restrictions came into practice, many families found the resources and made the sacrifice to send their children to Britain on the kinder transport. For many of them, they never ever saw their children again. They were killed, and their children whom they sent on the kinder transport were the only survivors of their family. Non-cooperation. This is a picture of a gentleman named August Landmesser. He originally had been a member of the Nazi Party. Early on, he fell in love with a Jewish woman with whom he fathered 2 children. Because of the Nazi Nuremberg laws, they were not allowed to marry. And you can see him right here. I'm going to show you with this cursor right here. You've got a group of members of the Nazi Party saluting Hitler as he came through in a motorcade. He did not salute Hitler. That was a tremendous act of resistance on his part. Eventually, he was taken to a concentration camp where he perished. We do know from records that were found many years later and photographs from his surviving children that both the woman that he was had the children with and was his partner, although not married, survived, as did his 2 children, which is how we know about his resistance to begin with. Speaking out, of course, was very, very important. This is a picture of Abba Kovner. He was the head of a partisan unit, a resistance unit in the Vilna Ghetto. He had not only a partisan manifesto and newspaper that he published, making everybody in the Vilna Ghetto aware of what was truly going on at the death camps, that people were not going to be resettled, they were not going to work, that they were going to sheep like a slaughter. As he says, we will not go like sheep to the slaughter. He called upon Jews to resist. Arise, arise with your last breath. Abba Kovner is a very, very well-known Jewish partisan. His group escaped, many of them, from the Vilna Ghetto and continued to operate a very successful partisan unit in Lithuania, and his group was called the Avengers. And of course, you can find much more information about Abba Kovner and the woman who became his wife, Vitka Kempner, on the JPEF website. Theirs is a very fascinating story. Staying visible was another act of resistance, act of defiance. This picture, actually, there's some controversy about whether this photograph was taken in 1932 and 1933. We are going based on a Jewish calendar, and Hanukkah happened to either be at the end of 1932, beginning of 1933. But this photograph was taken by a woman named Rachel Posner. Her husband was a rabbi in Kiel, Germany, and the building across the street from their home was taken over as a Nazi headquarters. And in defiance of the Nazi flag, they lit their Chanukiah on the 8th night of Hanukkah, just before Shabbat. It happened to be Erev Shabbat. And on the back of the photograph, which she kept with her, she wrote in Yiddish a caption, and translated was, "Death to Judah, so says the flag, Judah will live forever, so the light answers." And in fact, they were able to escape from Nazi Germany and survived, which is how this photograph survived. But at very great risk and very great defiance, they touted their Chanukiah right in the window across from the Nazi headquarters. Religious resistance was something that continued throughout the Holocaust. This is a photograph from the Lodz Ghetto, and it is a photograph that somehow survived of a commemoration on Simchat Torah, which is the Jewish holiday that happens in the fall, where we complete the reading of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and then re-roll the Torah scroll to the beginning and start again for the next year. So we start the beginning of the Torah on Simchat Torah and read it over the course of the year. This, of course, was a illegal practice under Nazi law, again punishable by death should they have been discovered. But religious resistance really continued throughout. It was present in the concentration camps. People fasted on Yom Kippur despite the fact that they were already starving. People said the Shema as they were being led to the gas chambers. Every single way that people could resist, and particularly people who were observant and religious, they continued under great personal threat and threat to loss of life to continue to practice religious resistance. Documentation was a way both during the Holocaust, but continues today to resist by documenting what life was like under Nazi occupation, how Jews were treated by both the Nazis and their collaborators. This, of course, is a picture from Anne Frank's diary, where she talks about what she would like her life to be and how she desired to go to Hollywood. Every single survivor that has given their testimony, every single person who has written a memoir, shared their video testimony, every single survivor who has their record at Yad Vashem or the United States Holocaust Museum or the Shoah Foundation, every single one of those testimonies is a documentation and an act of resistance. in capturing this piece of history.